How do you deal with it?
It doesn't say. So that's a bad time. I don't know what the amalgamation. Yeah, I mentioned on those things. Some people that. There may be some people that come in online later, but we do have a quorum. All right, are there any declarations of interest on the financial statement discussions? No discussion, no declarations of interest, so we have a motion to adopt the agenda. Resolved that the agenda for the March 30, 2026 Finance and Administration Advisory Committee meeting be adopted as presented. I need someone to move. So Jeannie moves and Paul seconds. All in favor? All right, the motion is carried to adopt the agenda. Next, we have an approval of the minutes of the last Finance and Administration. So resolved that the minutes of the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee meeting held November 27th, 2025, be received and approved as printed. I need someone to move. So Jeff moves and Roy Hugel seconds. All in favor, adopting minutes. Great. Fantastic. So now we move on to a discussion of the financial statements, and this year we'll have a resolution to recommend these to the board for the audited financial statements. So we have Baker Tilly here. Yes. Baker Tilly, so take it away, Baker Tilly. Introduce yourselves.
Gotta get the technical first.
You're intrepid auditors.
Oh, there's a new microphone. Can you hear me? Good? Okay. That works. If not, let me know. I'm apparently getting good afternoon, everybody. Those who don't know me, I'm Donna Rotar. I'm accounting partner, audit partner at Baker Tilly here in Carleton Place. This is my second year presenting to you guys, so to be back. So I'm just going to go over kind of an overview of our audit process. I'm going to walk through the financial statements, changes in there, in our opinion, and then finally what that looks like in the next few weeks. So our audit approach, we follow. Okay. We follow generally accepted Canadian auditing standards, so we are reasonable rather than absolute assurance. So we don't say they're 100% accurate, we say they're really close to accurate. Based on our risk assessment and understanding controls, we do political procedures, we focus on higher risk areas that have a risk of being stated. And our risk assessment is based on understanding entities, industry, customer, supplier relationships, and analysis of financial information provided prior to just a quick note on materiality. Obviously, to reasonable assurance, we use this concept called materiality, which we calculate is something that would be significant to the financial statements and make decisions. So similar to last year, we calculated this as a percentage of total. And just a threshold of this year, 95,000 last year, so up a little bit this year in line with. For the key findings, we did not find any significant internal control concerns or other matters to address, so that's great. Last year, we did have two small on our statement of unadjusted items, either met or exceeded materiality, and management deemed the statements to not be material and not have financial statements. So we explain those two things quickly. One is accrued interest. Accrued interest is around $10,000. I think it's roughly the same every year. Interest is typically not been reported, so we just continue to not report it. We do have to report it. So we would like the something as the just the financial statements, but we do have to here. And then the other thing is amortization, hazard mapping for intangibles for 2024. Talk about the hazard report. As you may or may not recall, I just did a meeting in September to discuss the hazard mapping and for investment. So we have made that change for financial statement. Doing that, we would have had to report about $20,000 amortization to the 2024 financial statements, but this it was It was a hard adjustment to make and it was only $20,000. So we just reported that in 2025. Some adjusted statements by the end of 2025. So those were the two issues there, very minimal. And then this year, our audit report includes an unqualified opinion. You may recall last year, auto qualification and asset retirement obligation on the so with the use of specialist management was able to compare against some asbestos and many of them. And so as a result, we beat the AR from the books and we did not have to qualify anymore. So there's a clean audit opinion this year. Now I'm going to walk through some of the numbers. Great. And I'm going to start with the cash flows, just because I think that is an easier thing to understand. Public every they are a little bit different than standard statements. So the statement of cash flows shows where cash was received and where cash was spent. The statement of cash flows, the cash flow from operations increased from 770,000 there to 1.5 million. This is primarily due to an increase in the annual surplus, as well as an increase in deferred revenue of $300,000. And so you have deposited in the city of Ottawa. We then move to capital activities. So this shows where you spend money. You spent $1.1 million on the purchase of tangible and intangible capital assets. And then financing activities show the repayment of loan. And then investing activities show a net increase of $659,000. There were several GICs that shorted the year, not all of them were reclassified by so that's there. So cash at the end of the year.
Can I ask a question? So I'm going to ask the question that I sent to Stacy earlier today. And that's related to the purchase of intangible assets, $304,000, which has induced the operating reserve by that amount.
Can I get a presentation?
Oh, you do? Okay. Well, wait, I'll wait.
I've gone there.
Thank you. Yeah, as I get an answer.
Yeah, no, get an answer. And I can back for it too, because it actually does change coverage, but it but I will get into that because I think it shows that around.
If you could just put the line right in front of your, close to your mouth as possible, they're just having trouble.
Right.
It's not us, it's the one online. Either that or hold it. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Well, they're throwing papers and trying to read.
Yeah, we're gonna try this.
How's this? Is this
Perfect.
better for everybody?
Well, it's the person online working.
Yeah, but I'm looking at Kelly to see if she can.
She hasn't messaged yet, but
Okay.
no news is good news.
Interrupt me again if you need to.
Over there.
Fine. Okay, so we're now going to walk through revenues. So revenues were up. Okay. Okay. Total revenue of 4.4 million, an increase of 130,000 over prior year. Under budget by $143,000, and you'll see that in the line grants that we didn't receive, and then categories that will bring it at. Expenses. Again, about 4.4 million of expenses, up from last year, but well below budget. The primary reason for this is below budget and back in the watershed management. That's where the budget has been already. That's where the budget has been already. So that's why you're seeing. Obviously, interested. So surplus before capital activities of $41,000.
That's a first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, right. So capital activities, there's the income from capital, and then we deduct the amortization of the tangible. So that brings the total annual surplus to $680,000. And then at the bottom here, you'll see the accumulated surplus, and we will go through that. Okay. Financial position, statement of financial position. So this is effectively the balance sheet. So it shows financial assets up a little bit for million. Financial liabilities also up a little bit for several million. So your net financial debt is so down a bit from last year. And then your non-financial assets are fairly comparable. Other than the increase in tangible, so you'll see tangible and intangible assets in development as well as so that balances to okay.
Sorry, so I have a question here.
Yeah.
So the fact that our financial position indicates we have an increase in value to the Conservation Authority. Is that because of like work on dams, tangible assets? Is it, and perhaps the hazard mapping and things like that, right? Those things. And so essentially it's because we increased the capital value of some of what we have. Okay, thank you. That's what I want.
So on this slide, so I didn't include this last year because it didn't change significantly last year. So Stacy had asked me to include this. So this is this is the breakdown. This is the breakdown of accumulated surplus and where those numbers come from. So accumulated surplus first has to be allocated to the assets on the next. So we take the net book value of tangible capital assets plus tangible assets under construction plus long-term debt. Yeah.
You know, everyone else, note 13 in their printed statements.
Note 13. Financial statement.
Page 25.
Page 25 is where I'm taking this from. So net book value of capital assets, assets under construction, last the loan on the building, invested in tangible capital assets, 4.7 million surplus was invested in then we take the net book value of intangible assets, which includes the hazard mapping, intangibles in progress, which correct me if I'm wrong, it's one hazard mapping, but still in process.
It's the FFW models.
It's the FFW model system. Thank you. So invested in intangible assets is $600,000. So your accumulated surplus total hasn't changed, which is changed as allocation of it to the intangible assets. You'll see in 2024 it's 300, but 300,000. So then, as was mentioned, the category 1 operating reserve has to offset by that. Accumulated surplus is still the same. It's just and then below we have category 1, category 2, and then restricted reserves as well. And so the thing I think is important. So if we would have had increased expenses, that's $3,000. Coming, and so your annual surplus would have been $2,000. And so after we allocate to intangible capital assets, we would have actually had an deficit to help that. So it's not like only the change in policy that invested in.
I think I understand, but I think the concern is that we've had to decrease our operating reserve by $300,000 that at least to my mind, had not been projected to occur. Correct. Like, as a board, we never approved the use of this operating reserve in this way or understood that that this was required. So now we have $304,000 less in our operating reserve, which is more than a third less.
Right. Based on spending. So now it's expensive.
I do understand that, but it was never projected that we were going to use $300,000 of the operating reserve. So maybe this is more a question for Stacy than for the auditor.
The operating reserve is an estimate. It's the plus, it's the excess. We've restricted other things. So when I first started, they were putting full surplus every year into the operating reserve.
Right.
Then we started, but actually put them to the proper restricted. This year, it's a taking away from, you have a bit of a loss, so where it hits is the operating.
Again, I understand, but it's just, that's a large amount that was not projected or discussed at, in November even, right? In our November, when we approved that the financial statements would go, well, no, look, I guess that was the budget. It's just we haven't seen that this was a projection, that's all. So see it, Sally?
You were here in the fall, were you not?
I was here in December, yeah.
So can you reiterate the story you told the board in December around this?
Yes. So in December, we discussed that the hazard mapping, we're spending the money on it now. And so it's coming out of our budget, but you are gonna use it for the next 10 years. So we have capitalized it and then we're going to amortize it over 10 years. So the cash was spent on it and the cash was getting spent on it either way, whether we accounted for it as an intangible or whether we expensed it. It's just where it's showing on the financial statements because there is future value in that. So that future value, instead of having $300,000 hit your surplus this year, you're hitting the surplus over 10 years.
It's just what has been presented to us as a finance committee in terms of use of an operating reserve. And I mean, I don't have the past numbers in front of me. It's just, that's what
It's in essence transferring it. Because the financial statements in terms of the surplus, things, what I present as the budget and our internal statements, all of the capital is cash based. It's not dealing with the fact it's interest and amortization, etc. It's strictly the cash. That cash is gone. Transferred the cash spent on the intangibles over to that capital.
Yeah, no, I understand the
Yeah.
accounting aspect. I understand that. That's not what I'm disagreeing or I'm having an issue with. It's just, the operating reserve is now $300,000 less than what we had thought it would be at the end of 2025. That's the way I.
But that's because the budget that was approved had that expense in it. It doesn't matter that we changed it for accounting purposes to intangible. You would have been in the exact same situation. The operating surplus would have come down either way.
So let me ask this question. Does that mean then that we have an operating surplus of $304,000 that we can put back in the operating reserve? I just don't understand. It seems like $300,000 has just disappeared somewhere.
No,
It's gone into the other.
it's gone, so you spent it out of operating and you moved it into
No,
intangibles.
again, I get that. I don't know, maybe I'm not expressing myself. I understand the accounting element of having changed its category.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then I just don't understand where this expense showed up in the budgets of 2025. So, okay, sorry. So let me let Sally speak and then Mary.
So when you were here in December, did you tell us that this was going to impact the operating reserves? Do you recall how this would impact the overall budget? Because as we go through the year, when Stacy does her updates, she tells you, oh, this is going to be reallocated, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to recall, and I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. But I'm trying to remember whether or not we had that discussion at that December meeting where the board at that point in time understood
Yeah.
the implications of what was proposed to be done.
And I don't think well, maybe I saw a copy of the budget Stacy presented, but she was moving the spending from operating to the capital reserves.
But I wouldn't have, yeah. So if you're looking at the accumulated surplus, all this intangible capital asset, that page 25, that 544, where it's here as an asset, wouldn't have been there. It would have been part of your operating reserve.
I remember being in December.
I was here in
The
December.
budget, yeah, you presented the budget in December.
Eighth, I think.
At the Navy?
Because it's, again, the way these are presented are different from how we account internally. I didn't recognize that this would shift this way, but it's the fact that the assets are higher. So that there's less available in that operating, which is your, lack of a better word, your discretionary or where the balance that's not restricted is.
All right, well, I'm gonna allow, I think Mary Lou had a question.
Well, I don't know whether, first of all, to comment. On a beginner's basis, I've been caught in some of these before. In the accounting for a different organization. And the question is, when we covered budget abuse initially, did we vote to spend this money on hazard map? We did. Therefore, that has been approved. And it would have gone somewhere. In simple 2-column accounting, it would have gone in under expenses. But instead of that, it doesn't show it in your financial statement. It shows up over there.
So can I try one more thing to make it make sense? Is that okay?
I'm kind of interested in this.
The only comment, sorry, before you go, it to me, it's a categorization, because you're right, Mary Lou, but it would have come out of like a category 1, the levy or something, because to me, it was part of, it originally was under operating, so it was part of a budget that we would spend as part of our, under the levy and everything. But now we're taking it out of a reserve to pay for it. That's what I don't understand is how that has occurred.
I think maybe this will work. So if you look at, so I mean, we're gonna ignore this capital stuff, but if you look at the surplus before capital activities, you have 41,000. So if we had expensed that $300,000, you would have a loss of $250,000 that would go against your operating.
Right, exactly,
Your budget, you spend more than you brought in.
right.
So that's why the operating reserve has come down. It's just basic decrease in retained earnings because of the net loss.
So we spent a whole lot more on hazard, this is where I'm trying to get to this, we spent a whole lot
Yeah.
more on hazard mapping than we had originally budgeted, thus requiring money to be taken out of the operating reserve to
You
cover.
didn't spend more than budgeted, last income came in.
Okay, so,
Like your expenses were budgeted at 4.8 million and you came in at 4.4. So you had budgeted for 4.8 million of expenses,
well,
but you had budgeted for 4.6 million of revenue. So effectively what it is a shortfall in your operating. And that's why the operating reserve is coming down.
okay, I mean, that I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's effectively what it is. The way it looked on the surplus schedule, like, but that's not what shows here because we moved it to intangible assets.
Right,
But if we took it out of intangible assets, you would end up in the exact same position other than amortization.
the only other comment I will make then is that when it has been presented to us, and I'm just have to go back and look in time, that the amount of the deficit was not clear to us, presented to this board, that was going to have to be covered by the operating reserve, even in December, it just was not presented. So that's why I'm surprised, okay, I understand there's accounting category issues, I get that, okay? But that's what I'm have concerns about, and I just want it on record. Okay, but that's a concern from this board, all right, and that I don't think we want to see surprises like that. If we are projecting a deficit, we understand that that may be the case. But we better understand that when we're making a budget for the next year and it's actually going to impact our operating reserve to the extent, like, if it were $20,000, okay, fine, but I mean, we're talking $300,000, which has reduced it by over a third. And I'm just, that's what my concern as chair of the Finance and Administration Committee, okay? So please make sure that that's noted. Are there any other comments from the board about this issue? So I can let our auditors move on. Okay. Seeing none, I will allow you to, please go on. I apologize for this, it's like.
No, I knew it was coming, don't worry.
I'm an engineer, not an accountant.
All good, all good.
Light number, but hey.
So then my last slide basically just talks about finalization, so we won't finalize the financials until the AGM, and we'll have some reports we need signed at that point, we'll do an update on subsequent events. The one thing I will note is obviously with what's going on with the amalgamation of the conservation authorities, there is a note in the financial statements, that just flags that there will be some impact to the organization. It's very broad. Let me know if you have any questions on the wording of that. It's the wording that's in, I mean, it's a weird time lag because the financials were issued kind of before mid-March, then there was no note disclosure because it was just unknown. March 12th, there was a bit of an announcement, so we do have to disclose something. But at this point, it's too early to know really what the impact will be, but we do need to flag that in a note to the financial statement. So the wording may change between now and the AGM date, depending on what comes out. That being said, I don't think we'll be in a position to know what the true impact will be at that point, so it may stay. So that's the only difference in terms of that, disclosing that subsequent events. No.
Right, so the question I always have, and when I look at financial reports, is whether the auditor had any issues. And when I did go through this, I didn't see any issues, but I just like to hear from your.
Yeah, I think that was
on that.
one of my first slides, I think, so we had no issues.
No issues. Okay.
Yeah, no issues.
Good.
I don't know what else, but
All right, are there
we
any?
did not find any significant issues. No, everything's in great shape. Stacy and Sally are doing a fantastic job. It was a big help to do.
Okay, are there any questions from the auditors or Stacy on this report? Don't see anything online, not seeing anything here, so. Pardon me? Oh, sorry, Paul.
I'm definitely not an accountant, I'm in the engineering field too, and environmental, so further away from numbers, we just looked at mud and slugs. I don't understand how you can take something that's intangible, mean it's not real.
Mhm.
And spread it over a number of years, like,
Do you use the hazard mapping over a number of years?
I haven't got a clue, but I assume
You
yes.
do. Yeah.
Okay, that's good enough, I'm gonna get out of this. I'm an accountant at home, and
I lived in the frequency domain for 2 years, so.
thank you, Janet, for what you're doing there, but I didn't understand any of it, but that's good.
Yeah, Stacy and I did an analysis. Like the accounting standards do allow for that because you did invest a lot of money in it and there is future benefit in it.
So I think we all understand that.
Yeah.
That's it, not an issue.
But we still had to pay for it in the first year,
So Sally, I think you had a response.
so the money's already gone.
Correct.
Right.
So why would we have to put it, that we're gonna take a little bit of money for the next 10 years?
Because that recognizes the use of it over the 10 years.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
Sally,
fine,
and then Stacy.
thank you.
So not only does it, amortize that cost over that period, so to speak, but it also recognizes that floodplain mapping is not stagnant. You have to update it, and our standard that we work towards is every 10 years. So every 10 years, we should be reinvesting in updating the floodplain mapping to reflect all the development that's occurred in the intervening years. So we do it obviously on a prioritized basis. Not every section gets done every 10 years, but certainly areas undergoing a lot of growth should be done every 10 years.
Okay, so Stacy, did you want to add anything?
On the watershed management, the budget item that says it's 1.48.
Right.
When I presented the internal statements in December in the revised budget, I had simply moved that whole hazard mapping to the cap, including the piece of category of levy and expenses. So in what I presented in December, it wasn't part of the operating expenses. I moved it to the capital, because that's where it's going to be put. So that may impact a little bit of how this is looking, but we did anticipate using and budgeted for using some operating reserves. But there's still a difference of the way it's presented with that intention.
Yes, Sally?
So I'm gonna ask for a clarifying question.
Okay, go ahead.
So Stacy, so to everybody, of course, part of the budgeting process, we assume a certain amount of drawdowns of various reserves, right? And the extent to which we actually draw down on reserves is dependent on any number of things, including what grants come in the door and what don't. We make the financial commitment, we're doing X. And so we have to deliver on X, whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, we figure out which pot we're going to drop from to pay for it. So I think part of what Stacy was saying just there is that we had planned to draw down on the operating reserve in part to deliver on that program last year. So part of what you're seeing is that drawdown. Is that a correct statement?
Yes. And also, we're restating the prior year's assets. So the value of the tangible capital assets in 2024 is now moved up, and that is partly the extra impact.
Yeah, but that wasn't a huge amount, right? Because I recall we did two.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way it, the amortization is small, the value of the assets.
True.
More.
Yeah. It may very well, no, all I'm gonna say is, I feel like there's a surprise here.
It was a bit of a surprise to me because of the way it was presented and the way I do things internally. I had not been anticipating that level of impact. With a restatement for prior years.
Right. And I just think the board needs to basically we're left with a significantly reduced operating reserve that we were not expecting going into 2026 that we have to be aware of. That's okay. Great.
I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want that moved. All right, so I'm gonna move to the resolution. Resolve that the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee receive and recommend that the Board of Directors approve the 2025 audited financial statements and direct that they be posted and distributed in accordance with Section 38 of the Conservation Authorities Act. So I need someone to lead on that. So Mary Lou moves, Kathy Curry seconds. All in favor? Okay, I think the motion is carried. Now, the auditor's report, I believe you've already provided the auditor's report as well. So, resolved that the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee recommend that the Board of Directors receive and authorize signing of the auditor's report. So I need someone to move. So Jeannie moves, and I'm seeing Mary Lou again seconds. Any comments? All in favor? The motion is carried. So thank you very much, Baker Tilly.
You're welcome very much. Thanks for having us.
Yep. Thank you very much. And so we will now move on to our final item on the agenda, which is a financial update. Financial updates made to the 2025 financial statements.
So this was just to, so I presented the internal statements at the board meeting in February. This is just what's changed post audit. One is that explanation on the intangible, which I'll to do a better note for. But out of the audit results and their impact was the only two things impacting our internal statements was the investment interest, the unrealized, because we now are into having actual investments. The value of them as a market value is technically unrealized because you haven't sold them yet, but we report that. And there was a small adjustment for the post-retirement benefit liability based on the actuarial report that gets done on what benefits we may have to pay out to staff retire in that window of over 60 and over 25 years of service. They maintain and stay on benefits till they're 65. So that's potential obligation, and that was about $900. But I will add a note explaining that intangible capital is shipped as a budget.
Yeah, that's it. That sparked my whole question.
Yeah.
What I was thinking of is, all right, are there any comments on the adjusted and audited comments from Stacy on the 2025 financial statements? You've already done them to death? Okay, so seeing none, that's just for information. So if there any other business before we adjourn?
Oh,
So Paul, I believe this, you have some other business?
No, you learned
Oh, I had myself.
Okay, all right, so just checking, okay, resolved that the Finance and Administration Advisory Committee meeting be adjourned, I need some move. So Paul moves and Royce seconds, all in favor? All right, thank you everyone for attending the meeting. Mr. Pizza,
yeah.
and with that, we're done.
Good.
Thank you for your business.
Well, I
You know what? A lot of that I didn't follow until last year's review.
Yeah.